Hello everyone, welcome back. So we are on to the fourth and final book of the original Hawks MC series before we move on to the Carolina Springs Charter series. So this one is No Way Out. And again, I will make sure I have the cover art on the thumbnail for your viewing pleasure. This is the story of Malinda May and Declan Stoke, also known as Stoke to the Biker Brothers. So, trigger warnings for this story include foul language, explicitly sexual scenes, but also depictions of domestic abuse, depictions of violence, attempted rape. If any of these are subjects that are triggering for you or some subjects you have a problem with, you might want to reconsider. However, as I've stated before, Lila Rose handles these subjects very well and pretty respectfully. And there's enough comedy and lightheartedness in the stories that it definitely helps to offset it and make it more palatable. So if it isn't necessarily a triggering subject for you, then I would definitely recommend at least giving it a try, because she does do it very, very well. So we start off at the funeral of one of the brothers, and this is the character of Tank, who was never really fleshed out in previous stories. He was always just kind of there. There'd been references to him having partied with some of the women around the club. And the reason why this is important is because it's his funeral, and this is when the members of the Hawks MC learned that he was married and had 2 children. And they are there. The children are both teenagers, and obviously the wife is there as well. The club tries to reach out to Melinda and the kids to see if there's anything they can do for them. Melinda really doesn't want anything to do with the club because, in her viewpoint, it was the club's fault that her husband went the way he did. According to her, their relationship, he'd been a loving husband and father until he joined Hawks, and that was when he changed. So Hawks MC is in a situation where they want to bring the family into the fold, but they don't know what to do. The women try to reach out to her. I'm just going to call a spade here. Diana opens her mouth and pisses Melinda off, to the point where they had to call in Julian. And of course, Julian wins her and the kids over, and they're willing to come to the wake at the compound to at least see what everything's about, right? And Melinda has to come to terms with the fact that her husband had changed. They hadn't had a real marriage for years at this point. In her own words, they were more like roommates. And it does stem from something that occurred between her and her husband. And he felt guilty, and I don't think he trusted himself around his family. And I'll leave it at that. Stoke, from the very moment that Melinda walked into the service, the funeral service with her kids, he had an attraction to her. He had a pull to her that he didn't understand, and he felt guilty for it because she was his dead MC brother's wife. And he felt that was very disrespectful. But as he comes to terms with the fact that, yeah, it's disrespectful, but then again, the man in question had been partying with other women. So he starts to kind of develop a relationship with Melinda and the kids. And at first they're all very wary about it because they don't have any experience with the man who stays around, really. Because the husband and father hadn't really been there very much. He'd been very much not a part of their lives. There are some side storylines where you find out that Tank had been into some really bad things that would not be condoned by the club, that they would actively frown on, and probably would have gotten him kicked out of the club if they'd known about it. And now it's coming back on Melinda and the kids, even though they didn't have any part in it. So Hawks has to step up and help out in that regard. And with the kids, the daughter, who's the eldest, has something of a bully going on at school, and there's an assault that happens there, and another student has to intervene. So there's a lot that goes in the story. There's a lot of added extra dimension because of the adding of teenage kids that have issues going on at school, as well as issues in the home. The kids, had kind of felt that their mom screwed up by staying with their dad, and they have to come to terms with the fact that she was trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot of really heartfelt scenes between her and the kids coming to terms with things, and the kids learning to accept that their mother wasn't trying to be a bad mom. She was trying to do the best she knew how to do. And all of them coming to trust Stoke and that he's going to be there and things like that. And then, of course, all of the added drama of things that have been put in place by Tank before he died. But that being said, there's a lot of really great comedy in here too, just like all of the other stories. You have Julian who pops up, Deanna who pops up, this crazy neighbor who, by the way, is kind of like something of a look into the future into what Deanna very well may become, because there's a scene where the neighbor is at Melinda's house and Deanna comes over, and all three of them start chatting, and you realize that Deanna and this crazy neighbor are almost exactly the same in how they talk and behave, to the point where Deanna's now husband Grizz comes into the room, and after watching them for a few minutes, he is completely mortified when he realizes that this crazy old lady is just like my wife. Oh my gosh, this is what I have to look forward to, right? So it's definitely got lots of comedy going on in there, and it's definitely really needed to offset some of the heavy. But it brings back so many characters, even a couple of minor characters that you wouldn't think you would ever see again. And there's even a point where they end up at a strip club with Julian giving the strippers pointers on how to dance. So I think that should give you plenty of things to pique your interest for this story. So for the characters, Melinda is, your heart goes out to her from the very beginning. She's had this terrible marriage, and she's always felt guilty about the fact that she stayed, but she always felt like it would be worse if she left. Better an absentee father than no father at all, I guess. And also a little bit of a fear that she wouldn't be able to do right by her kids on her own without Tank there to financially support them. When she realized that her kids kind of blamed her for staying, she really felt guilty, and she was finally able to understand some of their behavior and some of their actions. And she was able to move forward as a mother and really start to help her children heal and heal them all together as a family. She really has to learn to trust again, because for many years she's had this relationship or non-relationship with her husband, which, as I previously stated, they were more like roommates. There had been an altercation between them, and Tank apparently didn't trust himself around his family. And she didn't trust him around them, I don't think, either. It's not really stated, but it's something I kind of read into. And here comes Stoke. He's part of the same MC that she blames for having turned her husband bad. But he's very different. He includes the kids in conversation. He includes them. He actively reaches out to them to help them deal with their emotional issues with dealing with their father's passing. He and the club include them and try to bring them into the group, whereas her husband kept them away. And then, of course, she's probably realized the reason he kept them away was so that he could party with these other women, in part. And she has to learn to be able to trust her instincts again, and she has to be able to learn to trust men again if she wants to develop anything with Stoke. And with Stoke, he really has a trepidation about women as well, because in the novella that I spoke about in the last review, or the review before last, sorry, the double feature review, we'll call it that. Stoke had, it turns out, started a little bit of a relationship with Helen, Ivy's best friend, and it didn't go well. So he doesn't really feel the need to enter into a relationship, but his pull to Melinda is so strong that he finally just decides, all right, I may as well see what happens, see where it goes. And he becomes attached to her and the kids. And there's even development with the kids because they're so bad-tempered in the beginning of the story. And again, their father's been absent their entire lives, essentially. And as far as they could tell, he didn't want them and didn't like them. And so they kind of became rude and mean and snarky, kind of as something of a defense mechanism. And here they have a man who's taking an active role in their lives and wants to be there and seems to genuinely want a relationship with them. And they start to realize it wasn't us that there was anything wrong with. We didn't do anything wrong. And as a result, you see their behavior start to change, not because they're being validated by this other guy, but they don't have to be validated. They did nothing wrong. And that's something that I very much love to see as a mother myself. No kid should ever feel like it's their fault that their parent was less than for whatever reason. So there's a lot of character development, a lot of heaviness in the story, but there's also a lot of comedy. I've said it, I think, every review for this series, and I will continue to say, Lila Rose is a gifted author. Whether or not her style is a style you enjoy, that's a different matter. But she's very great at integrating comedy and lightheartedness and wonderful scenes that give you like warm, fuzzy feelings along with all of the harsh things. So you do have a really good balance, and it's not, you don't walk away from a story just thinking, oh God, I made it through it. You're like, whoa, that was a wild ride. So, that being said, I'm going to give this particular book a 3.8 out of 5 stars. Oh wait, no, not 3.8, sorry. 4.8 out of 5 stars. I think most people would enjoy it if they gave it a try. I hope this review was helpful for you in determining whether you want to read this story or not. I hope you've enjoyed this series and that you've decided to try at least one of the books from the series. Next review is going to be the first book from the Carolina Springs Charter series. I hope that you are looking forward to it as much as I am. Look forward to seeing you all at the next review. You have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.